Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Scum and Villainy, the tabletop role-playing game. All right, let's jump into this. All right, so this is my review for Scum and Villainy, the tabletop role-playing game. It was created by Off Guard Games as well as Evil Hat. Its lead designs were Stras, Acimovic, and John Leboeuf-Little. All right, so this is a really unique tabletop role-playing game. I'll give my rating for it now. I think this is a 4 out of 5 star game, and I think it's worth the price of admission. I think it's worth what it costs. I think, which is around $20 for the PDF. I'm reviewing the PDF version of the game. Game came out in 2018, and it's really quite unique. So let's jump in and let's describe it. So one, I'll give the core concept. So this is a science fiction tabletop role-playing game, and it really is, and it's its own unique setting. All right, it takes place in the Procyon sector, and essentially it is a game about smugglers, right? And it really is, the best way to describe it is this game is 50% Star Wars, 45% Firefly, and 5% Star Trek. All right, but actually, while every single Star Wars has a tabletop role-playing game, Star Trek has a tabletop role-playing game, and Firefly has a tabletop role-playing game. Look at that, right? So while they all have licensed games, right, this one specifically is unique. Right, so it's its own world, right? So you can jump in, and the nice thing about that, when someone builds a world that is similar to another world that a lot of people have goodwill for, the nice thing about that is a lot of game masters can be really daunted about running a game in a licensed property, and they're not wrong to be, because there are a lot of times it's really quite likely that one of your players will have a stronger knowledge of the intellectual property than you will, right? So that's one of the things that's great about Scum and Villainy is, since it is its own unique world, everybody can come to it with the same amount of knowledge, and there's not a lot of things being projected onto it, right? There's a lot projected onto Fireflies, onto Star Wars, onto Star Trek. There's a lot of expectations there. Some people might have, almost encyclopedic knowledge of the entire property or areas of the property, and so games can get bogged down when people are like, oh, this doesn't resonate with the IP, right? So with a game like this, you have a little more freedom, which is really nice. Okay, I really like this game a lot. It's extremely well crafted. So basically, I told you what the game is about. Let me tell you some of the really unique features about this. One of the really unique features about Scum and Villainy is it is forged in the dark. Now, what this is a system rules set, right? So, it's a system rules set. So basically, John Harper, I think back in 2016, created Blades in the Dark, right? And Blades in the Dark was really unique in that where most tabletop role-playing games give you mechanics for your player character, there aren't mechanics for your party, right? Not only does Blades in the Dark create mechanics for your player character, it creates mechanics for your party, your crew, right? In addition to that, it has very extensive mechanics for downtime. More and more games have that, right? But this one comes with it essentially in the box, and so essentially you had mechanics around more than just your player character, right? So that's one of the things that's really special about Blades in the Dark. It's actually incredibly well crafted, and it's historically important, in my opinion, because John Harper is he's a brilliant designer. He's been doing it for years, but he's kind of been on the low key, right? And actually, I think he's a lot more popular among tabletop role-playing game designers than he actually is players or game masters. And he is actually friends with Kate Welch, right? So Kate Welch, there's a very good, it is my opinion that Kate Welch will be the design lead on 6th edition, right? So, you can do the connected dots. John Harper to Kate Welch to So there's a possibility that things that occurred, rules mechanics that showed up in Blades in the Dark, could absolutely show up in Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. And that's pretty important, right? But Blades in the Dark, if you haven't tried it, it's one of the best tabletop role-playing games ever written. And so this uses the same system rules as Blades in the Dark. Another thing is the fact that another independent creator comes along and chooses your rule system and builds an entire game on top of that. Not a lot of tabletop role-playing games have that, right? So Powered by the Apocalypse, Forged in the Dark, Fate. These are all, systems where people come along and they build on top of it. And just to be super clear, you actually can't build a 5th edition tabletop role-playing game right now, right? You have to come at it. Can't build a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition role-playing game. People are doing it, but you have to come at it very sideways, right? And it's really not supported for you to stand up your own tabletop role-playing game based on the 5th edition rules. It is an open game line. It isn't OGL, right? 5th edition really isn't OGL. Now with the DM's Guild, you can build some things, so forth, right? All right, let's get back to Scum and Villainy. So that's one thing that I really care a lot about. That's one of the reasons why I've taken the time to review Scum and Villainy, is I really care a lot about Forged in the Dark, and I think it's awesome that people are using this system rules, right? All right, so in addition to everything I talked about with Blades in the Dark, you have mechanics here for your player character. You have mechanics here for your crew, your crew for your ship. You have mechanics here for your downtime. You have mechanics for the job you're going to go on, the mission, right? And by the way, all of these interlink, right? Now, that was in the Blades in the Dark as well, the job, right? And then on top of all that, Scum and Villainy adds one more, and you have mechanics, a little mini system in there for your ship, right? So this game really gives you a very distinct ability to build a freighter-sized ship, right? So think Firefly, think Millennium Falcon, right? Those classic freighter-sized ships. And the game does a fantastic job of breaking that down, allowing you to put in fun modules on all the different ship systems. And it really lets you, and part of this game is going to be, flying around, delivering cargo, here, getting mods for your ship. And that's pretty fun because it's something that you can work on together, right? And which I think is really cool. So, and the game does a really fantastic job of this. And one of the things that is in the game that is really nice is just all of these mechanics work together in tandem. Now, there is a warning here, and it's one of the reasons why I have why I'm giving this 4 out of 5. I absolutely love the Blades in the Dark game. However, I do feel that Blades in the Dark and Scum and Villainy both suffer from the same problem, which is its complexity. They are both incredibly high complexity, and in addition to that, not only are they incredibly high complexity, but they have this new problem that's been creeping into tabletop role-playing games overall, which is tabletop role-playing game designers going and designing their game and then playtesting their game with super dope, super awesome player tabletop role-playing game designers, right? And then the game that comes out is really great if you have tabletop role-playing game designer level players, right? Not everybody does. So if you don't have really spot-on players, you could definitely struggle to play Scum and Villainy. There is a significant amount of complexity behind this game, right? So just be aware of that. That's totally. I mean, that's okay. It's all right that there's a game out there that that requires some significant thought, and this game does. So it's one of the sharp points on the game for me personally. So I am calling that out. The game does a really fantastic job of presenting a cohesive art style. So the entire art for the game, it all looks very cohesive. The art succeeds on several levels. It's consistent throughout the entire book, okay, which I really like. It's all of the art is black and white. it looks like inked pages from a comic book, right? So it looks like drawn, inked, uncolored pages from a comic book. It's exactly what the art looks like. But the art does a fantastic job of conveying what the world looks like, right? And also making the game quite unique, right? Making it feel like this is a unique science fiction world, this Priceon sector, and that you're playing in a world that is very unique from, specifically, I would say, from Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly, right? So you have all of that there. It's really fantastic. I very much enjoyed it. Let me talk a little bit more about that. So let's talk about the character classes, right? So one of the things you'll find is, let me see if I can remember them all. So one, the core 4 is there, okay? So the fighter is called Muscle in this game. The cleric is called a Stitch, and that's your ship's doctor. And by the way, your player characters are all the crew of a star freighter, essentially, right? And the game actually presents 3 specific unique star freighters that serve as examples for what you can build, and serve to allow you to jump right into the game, and you can actually use one of those freighters, right? So that's one way to do it. Let's go back. All right, so you have the Muscle, you have the Stitch. The Rogue is called a Scoundrel in this game. And by the way, some of the feats and things like that actually very directly reference, I would say indirectly reference Star Trek, Star Wars, and Firefly, right? And then in addition to those 3, you have the Wizard. The Wizard in this game is the Mystic. Let's talk about the Mystic for a minute. The Mystic is clearly a Jedi counterpart, right? So, and basically they call it the Way in the game, and but you can essentially play a Jedi in this game, right? And the Mystic is in there. It's in the game. Very, very interesting. All right, so you have the core 4, right? You have Fighter, Cleric, Rogue, Wizard. They're there. There's 3 additional. There's the Mechanic. There's the Mechanic character type. There's the Speaker character type. This would be like a noble or a face type character, right? And and the pilot, right? So clearly, which is clearly very good. One of the things that clearly needed in this setting, right? So it's very, very interesting. One of the things that was really fascinating to read in Scum and Villainy is how they approached specifically. How they approached heritage, right? So one, this game has abandoned the word race. It doesn't use species. It uses heritage, right? Now, in the game, you can be a human, right? Or you can be a Xenos. The way they approach Xenos in the game is really, really interesting. And I think it really, I'm absolutely fascinated with the new acknowledgement at the tabletop role-playing game designer level that race and species really need to be thought of dramatically different in tabletop role-playing games. And so one of the things that we're seeing now is, how do different designers do this, right? So one, a very, very few display their ignorance and just, continue to call it race, continue to call it species, and just say, this race is better at this, +2, this race is better at that, +2, right? And to me, they're saying, hey, I'm not even paying attention to design, right? You see that every now and then. It's more and more rare, okay? But one of the things that they did here is they essentially gave you a model to build your own race, or build your own heritage, right? You build your own lineage, right? So you can build your own Xenos, right? Which is kind of a cool way it's a cooler way of saying making an alien heritage, right? So basically, and it gives you a structure, and essentially you have like a light, a medium, and a heavy ability, right? And they give you very clear examples of this. Like that one, they said, whatever color you want to make the skin, if you want the hair to be tentacles, if you want, basically anything that's cosmetic, add it in. That they're like, no problem. You can, if you want your eyes to glow, no problem, right? But anything that gives an advantage, right? You essentially rank these, and you get one light skill, one medium skill, and one heavy skill, right? Now, one of the things that wasn't super clear to me was it didn't look like it was. It did, because the game is so open on allowing you to do this heritage thing. It could get a little hairy as far as being balanced right out of the game, right? So, and it wasn't super clear also to me where if you were making a Xenos, it still seemed like you were going to come out ahead of just playing a regular human, right? I should explain. They did add in, not only do you get, a light, a medium, and a heavy benefit, right? You also do get a negative, right? So it might be allergies. You might not be able to breathe on most planets. There might be social stigmas about you showing up in different areas, right? But essentially, there is a lot of openness in this game for building your Xenos, right? So if your player really has some visual idea of how to create a Xenos, the game gives you a mechanic to do it. And it's pretty interesting. I thought it was really quite good. But one of the things you could see is generally, they're saying, hey, make sure these Xenos are humanoid size, and a great way to explain this is a Star Trek alien, right? You want a Star Trek alien, right? 2 arms, 2 legs. Maybe it's got some stuff on its forehead, its skin could be a different color. The game is really approaching Xenos from that perspective. But it is giving you this permission, it's giving you this liberty to go down this road. And it really is interesting to me to really think deeply about, what happens with this as we go forward. I'm really fascinated what they're going to do with 6th edition, because one of the issues is, what basically, I think almost all these games going forward, cosmetics are just going to be cosmetics. It'll be free. But what happened, like a Dragonborn? A Dragonborn can breathe fire. That is a combat ability, right? That clearly, gives you an advantage that a human player wouldn't have, right? So how do you balance that? And that is going to be the biggest question going forward, is how do you balance building these heritages, right? And different games are going to approach it, differently. Actually, I was impressed with the way it was handled within Scum and Villainy. I thought they did a really good job with it. I really like the openness of it. And it gives players lots of options, right? So the game really is quite unique. It is presenting its own unique setting, and it is allowing, and so you can kind of escape some of the shackles you would feel in a Star Trek, Star Wars, or Firefly game. But get a lot of the same action and a lot of the same adventure, and your group can really make it your own, right? And I will say this, with Forged in the Dark being the system rule setting, this is not going to feel like any game you have ever played, right? And it's really cool to think that you have this system rule set, this system rule setting, continuing to grow for Forged in the Dark. It's really exciting for John Harper. It's exciting for Evil Hat. Evil Hat had a rough year last year, so I really want to see them succeed, and I'm really glad that Evil Hat is aligned with John Harper. I think they kind of need each other. Evil Hat is absolutely able to accomplish some things that John Harper cannot, as far as distribution and product quality, that I don't think John Harper would have the time or energy to do on his own, right? Because he's an individual creator, right? But on the other hand, John Harper, in my opinion, any tabletop role-playing gaming house that has him, within their stable of writers and designers is very fortunate, just because his craft is so strong from the rules perspective. So I definitely give 2 thumbs up to Scum and Villainy. It's a 4 out of 5 star game in my opinion. I absolutely think it's worth the price of admission. I highly recommend picking it up. I think it's really exciting from all the different aspects that it has. If you've played it, I'd love to hear your experience with the game. Also, are you familiar with Forged in the Dark? What do you think of the idea of this Forged in the Dark continuing to grow as a system setting? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.